Hello, everyone. Welcome back to TICMD, the International Conference of Medical Doctors. Here with us today, we have attorney Melissa Glorihian.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here again. Thanks for having me.
Thank you again for taking the time to answer all of our questions. We're going to start right away with a brief description with the different visas that medical doctors or international physicians require to work in the US.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for joining. I know that we have YouTube, Zoom, and other channels. So thank you. We're doing this for you. So if you have any questions, reach out to the team. Something is very common in the USA for medical doctors is that they required either the J1 visa or the H1 visa. The differences are critical because the H1 visa is a worker's visa. It's a temporary worker's visa, which means that you can have it for 6 years total. And this is for specialty occupations who hold, you're already a doctor, you graduated, you want to work in the USA, you have all the steps completed, but you're a foreign doctor, so you require the H1B visa. What this means is that you need a sponsor, an actual employment letter from an employer requesting you to work for their clinic, for their hospital, to perform activities with a salary that is authorized by and following federal and state wages, right? The issue with the H-1B visa is that obviously you need to work for that hospital. You have to be a medical graduate in the USA with all the steps, right? As a foreign doctor with all the steps completed and all the certifications, right? The J1 visa, it's commonly used for residency programs. It's a type of exchange visitor visa, and there are so many clinics and so many hospitals that sponsor this type of visa. So again, you need a letter from a clinic, from a hospital that is going to sponsor the J1B visa. The specifics of the visa are very strict in the sense that you are going to have this visa only for the purposes that they hired you. Some universities occasionally sponsor J1B visas for very specific research positions. And the good thing is you can renew the J1 visa every year if you still have that employment. One limitation of the J1B visa that everybody asks us about is the 2-year home residency requirement, which means you're done with the J1B visa before the visa expires, but you're done with your program, you are required to go back to your home country. And obviously, if I got the J1 visa, I'm working in Beverly Hills, in Cedars-Sinai. I don't want to go back home because I'm already trying to build a life here in the USA, right? And try to obtain an H1 visa. So what most IMGs, what they do is they request a waiver. This is a piece of document that your attorney will file into your J1 visa application. And there are 5 reasons that the US government, the USCIS would consider for you to stay in the USA and continue with the J1 visa and waive this 2-year requirement. Number 1, which is not that common, is a no objection statement. What does this mean? This means that your home country, the government, may issue a no objection statement claiming that they don't want you back, you're okay in staying in the United States. I've never seen this case, to be honest. I've never seen a letter from a government claiming that a person is authorized to stay under a J1B visa, but is one of the waivers. It must state your government. Basically, it's a letter where the government says that has no objection to you returning to your home country to satisfy the 2-year home country physical presence requirement, and no objection to the possibility of you becoming a lawful permanent resident in the United States. The second, not that common exception, but it's a waiver, it's the request by an interested US federal government agency. If you were on a J1B visa, and excuse if you hear background noise, it's my son crawling all over the house. If you are working under J1B visa for a US federal government agency, you're working for a project that has a huge interest in the United States. Let's say you are working for research, cancer research, something very specific, you're working something confidential that the USA government has a lot of interest. If this agency presents in your application, GWE application, that they want you, the government, to waive the 2 year so you can stay and continue this important research, you're going to stay, and this will be sufficient to waive it. The third one, it's persecution. So do you believe that if you go back to your home country, you will be persecuted based on your race, your religion, your political opinion? Again, I haven't seen this case, but if you have the argument, if you are from a country that you believe that you have reasonable reasons to believe that you're highly going to be persecuted by the government if you come back, this is the third waiver that is authorized for you to not come back to your home country. The fourth one is exceptional hardship to a USA citizen. Let's say you are under J-1B visa in the USA, working in Beverly Hills in the Cedars-Sinai hospital. You had a baby. That baby is a USA resident. You can claim in your J-1 visa application that because this baby needs you in the country, and obviously this baby is under your care, you cannot go back. This is very common. You know that you're under J-1 visa, you get pregnant, your baby's born in the United States, your baby's a USA citizen, and obviously you're not going to go back to República Dominicana, or you're not going to go back to India and leave your child here. This is a very common waiver. Waiver number 4. The same happens with your spouse. Let's say that you come to Beverly Hills, Cedars-Sinai, you're working for a J-1B visa, you meet somebody, you get married, and then you're done with a J-1B visa, you have to come back to your country. If you file this document with a USCIS and explain that you got married, you have a husband, you have a wife, you have a partner in the USA, and therefore you cannot go back to your country. This is very common. Life, these things happen. So this is the 4th exception. The other exception that is super common for IMGs is the request by a designated state public health department that they will have to file this exception for you with documents claiming that, you know, you have to be working as a full-time employee at a healthcare facility that has a shortage area. What does this mean? This organization needs you to work in the country or outside of Chicago in a very undeveloped area where there are no doctors, no local doctors want to be there, so they need you there. And this is the most common exception that international medical graduates use. And people think, oh, they're going to send me to a horrible place and I'm not going to be paid enough. Remember that just because you have a visa, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be paid wages, lawfully decided wages according to, you know, what are the rates for that field, for that sector. So don't be scared that, you know, just because you're using this exception that you're not going to be paid, or perhaps you're not going to be in a very desirable area for sure. These areas are not New York City, they're not Los Angeles, they're not big hospitals. They're areas where they really need doctors that they don't have local services there. So this is the most common exception. The requirement is that it has to be full-time employment. You have to work for this facility for at least 40 hours per week and not less for 3 years. So it is a commitment in terms of timeline, but this will allow you to stay in the country with a J-1B visa. So those are the most important waivers for the J-1B visa, super doable. You just need to make sure you gather all the evidence to request that waiver.
Okay, thank you for the description of each visa. And we do have questions in the chat in YouTube, but before that, I share with you a case of someone who was doing hands-on rotations in the US. And then when he went back to his home country, he mentioned that he was being paid while doing rotations with a tourist visa, and then he was denied access and he was banned from the US after taking all of the steps and everything. So
I am shocked. No, let me back. Thank you for sending me that. I am not shocked. And this is the number one if you need one takeaway from this conversation, and I know that this is going to be a shorter session because I have a call in 15 minutes, but we can do more sessions about this. First of all, you need to understand the legal requirements for each visa. The B1, B2 visa, you are an unpaid person coming for observatorship. It's a rotation, it's unpaid. You can't do clinical work, clerical work. You can't do any other work that is paid. So it is very important that when you go to your government and request, let me get my baby because he's going up the stairs. If you go to your interview, that you claim specifically what do not mention that you're being paid. First of all, you shouldn't be paid. Second of all, you shouldn't be doing any other activities beyond an observatorship, which means you're there to learn what they're doing, taking notes of what they're doing. You're there to learn. You're not there to get paid. You're not there to do administrative work and stuff like that. The same thing happened with a client, actually. This client received the J1V. Was it he received it? He was in the interview for the J1V visa. And he disclaimed in the interview that one of the job requirements for, sorry, not the J1B visa, the observatorship. One of the requirements for the observatorship was to do, 40 hours a week of office work. And that's like super illegal to do, because the observatorship just means, yes, you can take notes, but it's 100% related to medical. That would be basically free labor of a foreign doctor, and that's prohibited in the United States. So guess what happened when this person exited the interview? The B1, B2 visa was rejected. Takeaway from this sad story, especially for all of us, again, sorry, we didn't do intro, but I'm also an international law graduate. So I've been through the visas. I had a student visa, H1B visa. So the takeaway from this conversation, if you have one, is make sure you follow the requirements, make sure you don't overstay, right? If you have an H1B visa and you're done with the 6 years, you cannot stay after the H1B visa unless you can find another visa. For instance, unless you got married and you filed for the green card. Now, B1, B2B visas, they are for very specific uses, for tourism, for observatorships. You cannot get paid. The same if you come to study with an F1B visa. F1B visa holders, I came with an F1B visa. Jesus Christ. We're not required to work, and we're not required to get payments for that work. When I came to the USA, some of my classmates were working, and they had medical graduate students that were doing masters in the United States, and they were working under the F1B visa and being paid. That's illegal. If the USCIS finds out that you are working and being paid with a student visa, you could be deported. So my number one suggestion is, it is very hard to come to the USA to obtain a visa. We work both in our professions. We work extremely hard to be knowledgeable, recognized in the industry. Do not jeopardize your ticket to come to United States with any lies, with any additional times where you're not allowed to be here. Hire an attorney, and you don't have to hire me. I'm just saying, hire somebody you trust to evaluate what are the visa options that you could have. Whether you can transfer, let's say your H1B visa finished, now you wanna stay in the country, you don't have any options, you can't get a green card because you're not gonna marry anybody, because you don't have a couple, a significant other. Can you go back to the tourist visa? Can you go back to an F1 visa? So make sure that you analyze those requirements, because it's very important to stay in compliance with the laws in the United States regarding, visas.
Yes, we have a question from the chat. She was asking, okay, so she said, to request J1 research from Argentina, can I present a bank statement from a US bank? can I present the paycheck salary receipt of my husband instead of the bank balance as a proof of funds? He works as a contractor for a US company.
Sorry, again, she wants to why does she need to? She wants to show money in a bank account in the US, but they're still in Argentina.
She is in Argentina. She wants to request the J1 visa for research.
Okay.
So she wants to know.
Proof of funds. Mm-hmm.
Her husband works as a contractor for a US company. So she wants to know if she should present a bank statement from the US or Argentina to be able to request this type of visa.
So that's not an immigration question. So I'm assuming those funds. I'm assuming her husband receives those funds in Argentina in a foreign bank, right? Sorry. I'm assuming her husband receives the funds in a foreign bank, and those are not declared in the for tax purposes in Argentina. So that's has a legal issue, right? Because you're getting paid for services you're doing in Argentina, you're getting paid in US dollars in a foreign bank account. From a tax perspective and from the Argentinian government perspective, you are not paying taxes on that money. And that happens to a lot of Argentinians that do services with foreign companies, because obviously due to all the issues that are happening with Argentina, the funds stay outside of the country. I wouldn't show those funds in my application, not because the US government will know, just because you're filing this document in Argentina and you might not want to show that you have this amount of money in a foreign bank and you're getting paid for those funds and you're not paying taxes for that money, I'm sure. Unless you are paying taxes, which is something that you don't have to share with us. I'm just giving you the legal response. If you're paying taxes on that money and that's legal money that has no issues with the Argentinian government, yes, you can show proof of funds in a foreign account. That's what I did with my F1 visa, to prove that somebody like my parents were able to afford, my Master of Laws at Northwestern and all of that. But those funds were declared in Argentina. They were not funds that were illegal. So that's my take. We can discuss further in private, offline, if that works for this person. But for sure, make sure that the legal part is clear in terms of not the origin of the funds, that those are declared and you're paying taxes for that money in Argentina.
Okay, so actually Dr. Sebas has a question for us. He says, if you could
Dr. Sebas, how are you doing?
Yeah, if you could comment generally about why a colleague was denied J1 visa if B1 and B2, B1 and B2 allows them to do observership. So why was he denied J1?
We will have to analyze what happened in the case. Do we have the details on what happened? Because I don't know if he received a reasoning on why the J1 visa was required, if he complied with all the requirements. So we will need to get more information about that case. Okay, I'm happy to review it offline.
Yes, of course. Thank you. We have a Canadian citizen that wants to know any ways to work in the US. And I know Canadians and Mexicans have one special visa to work.
Correct. Mexicans and Canadians have the TN visa. So it's accessible only for Canada and Mexico citizens to qualify. This visa qualifies them full time of employment as professionals in your field. And this is due to the NAFTA, I believe it was the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA? Yeah, North American Free Trade Agreement, yeah. So they can use their temporary non-immigrant status with very specific requirements for each country to be able to work in the USA.
Okay, another question is, if I have B1 and B2 visa, but I am doing externship, observership, what should I appropriately say at passport control for the purpose of the visa? I mean, of the visit in the US?
That you're doing observatorship work. That's it. In X place, and that is unpaid. And that you're planning on coming back to your home country after the observatorship ends. No more information. Observatorship, I'm going back to my home country because I have to take exams. This will have a duration of X weeks. And I'm very excited because I'm going to learn about X, Y, and Z. And it's obviously, it's an unpaid position. Punto. No more details.
Yes.
Do not say, yes, they want me to work on Saturdays to cover for somebody and they're going to pay me $15 the hour. Do not say any of that.
Please. Okay, so on a B1 stamped for a month during entry, apply it for extension with I-539 well before expired of I-94, received a receipt of application, which is the best course of action to preserve B1?
I didn't understand the question. What's the duration of her or his B1? Preserve the B1? B1, if you don't overstay, you're not going to have any issues with it. Unless the USCIS flags that, you know, you were being paid, you were actually working, and but that's information that either you are going to share with USCIS or somebody is going to, you know, report it.
Okay, so to leave before the I-94 expires or to wait for a decision that could take weeks. I believe he's asking for like an extension. Should that person leave before a decision is made, before it expires, or wait?
Receive the receipt of the application, which is the best course of action to preserve. If your visa expired, I would leave because you don't know. I don't know how many days left you have in your visa, but you don't know if the extension is going to be approved on time, which means that if you're staying in the country with your visa, with an expired visa, you're illegally staying in the country. Sorry for that noise. And you can't do that.
Okay. Okay, so someone is asking how to obtain visa after masters are completed. Can we do observerships unpaid, even with job or not, if we don't have any job at the time as unemployment? Oh, it says as unemployment days can be up to 90 days. Like how to obtain a visa after someone completes a master's in the US.
You can switch it if you're done with with the requirements for the J1B visa and you get a sponsor, you can move to the J1B visa, but it's a new application. You would have to apply while you still have a valid visa. I'm assuming this person has the F1B visa.
Oh, he's talking about OPT.
Oh, so yeah, OPT unemployment is 90 days because he's on OPT. Yes, optional practical training. After you're done, I'm assuming you're talking about the F1B visa, correct? The student visa. After you're done with the student visa, the government gives you an OPT, which is optional practical training, which means that the government gives you, or the government gives you 1 year to work and you can be paid. That's the visa that I had after the F1 visa. I finished my Master of Laws. I applied to Northwestern Pritzker School of Law for the optional practical training visa. Let me tell give me 1 second. I have a call now, so I will let them know that I will be delayed. Streaming delayed on the call. Please, can you start the call? And I need to drop in 3 minutes, but we can do another call, team. You request the OPT. For that OPT, you are able to work and get paid. That's what I did. I was hired, but obviously you need to find a job, right? I found a job. A big law firm in Silicon Valley hired me with the OPT. So that OPT allowed me to work for this law firm, being paid as a law clerk because I didn't have the California license to practice law. But after the OPT expired, I had to secure my H-1B visa, which the law firm sponsored. In your case, you're done with your master's, I'm assuming in medical something. You requested the OPT. Be careful because OPT 90 days. I don't understand what the question is. I'm going through the process of the OPT. Now, if you're done with your master's, if after you're done with your master's, you have the OPT. If you can't find employment when your OPT is over, let's say you're done with your master's, you started working for a hospital in New York City with your OPT, you won't be, if you can't find an H-1B sponsor, or if you can't find another visa, you have to leave the country because you will be out of legal status in the USA.
Okay, so we have an Indian citizen. He's asking
Team, I have to drop. It's already like past 10:30. I have another call, but let's have all the pending questions maybe in another session. Would that work?
Okay. You just let us know and we can continue with another session.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you all. I'm so sorry I have a work call that I cannot push. I would love to stay with you guys talking about visas, but let's schedule another call. Send all the questions that you have to the team, and we're happy to do more sessions of this if this is helpful.
Yes, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us. Stay tuned for our next conferences. Bye.